name's Helen. I run Mummy's Gin Fund, and this is Myra. She is a senior women's health physiotherapist and creator of my all-time favourite app, which is called Squeezy. And this is Vicky, who is interpreting for us this evening. So what we'll do, we'll just hang about for a minute or so and let some people join us. Let's talk about the weather. So, a little bit wet outside, but lovely Myra's going to teach us how to be dry inside, aren't you, Myra?
I am.
Do you see what I did there? So, whilst it's wet outside, we'll be very dry inside with Myra. So, whilst we're just waiting for a few more people to join us, I have to just quickly show you what is currently on my puffy chair sofa thing. Look at this stuff. It's ace. This is all in front of me. I'm dying to know what it is. It feels slightly dodgy, like I'm running some kind of, alternative shop. But there's loads of stuff here that, there's pants. That Myra's going to tell us all about. So, just put this down. So, if you can hear me, and you can see us okay, give us a little wave or a little like or a little say hello, just so we know that we're not alone. Oh yes, hi Tasneem, yes, check me out. Tasneem saying check me out, doing a bit of Facebook Live. Facebook Live with pants, can I say. How many other mom bloggers are out there with pants? That's all I'm saying. Don't see anybody else out there with pants. But anyway, we're just hanging. Oh, hi Sophie. Sophie's on. Sophie from Calm Hypnobirthing. Calm Hypnobirthing, one of our recommended businesses. So whilst we're just waiting for everyone, I'm going to tell you about Sophie. Hope she doesn't mind. Before I went on maternity leave, I was working as a sign language interpreter, and I got to interpret one of Sophie's hypnobirthing classes. And I have to say, the information that I overheard during that class gave me the best birthing experience ever. I absolutely loved giving birth, and I know you probably think I'm completely mad, but I loved giving birth, and a lot of that was to do with Sophie. So if anybody out there is pregnant, I personally can highly recommend you getting in touch with her. So anyway, nice to see you, Sophie. Who else is here? Oh, hi Lou. Hi. Oh, sorry, you're going to get a big shot down my... Let me look on my phone so you're not looking straight down my top every time I lean forward. 1 second. I have actually only had about that much wine so far, so let me just quickly go onto my phone so I can see you. Also, just to let you know, if you want to ask questions, then please do. You can either ask questions in the comments, or you can send a private message to the Facebook page, and I will read it out, and I won't say your name, obviously, because that would defeat the purpose of it being a private message. So I'm just checking that I can see you all on my phone. Oh, there we go. Hi everyone. Oh no, I need to turn the sound off because I can hear myself as well. No? Oh. Right. Good. Right. Hi everyone. So I think we've probably got enough people to start. So I think the easiest thing to do is if we start off just with the lovely Myra, just introducing herself. Is that okay?
That's fine.
So if Myra just wants to talk a little bit about what she does, and then we can talk about pelvic floors, and I will probably share way too much information. Anyway, Myra, go.
Okay, well, I'm a physiotherapist specialising in pelvic health disorders, and there are about 44,000 physios in the UK, but only 600 of us specialise in this field. So it can be a little bit difficult to come and see one of us. I work in the NHS locally, and I treat conditions such as stress incontinence, overactive bladder, anal incontinence, constipation, prolapse, pelvic pain.
What a heady cocktail.
My big passion is in spreading the word that these conditions should be talked about and should be treated. And treatment is available, and there's lots of different treatments that we can do and that other healthcare professionals can do. And it is just not acceptable to put up with symptoms that can really make your life very miserable. So what we're going to talk about first is what the pelvic floor is, because pelvic floor is a term we use regularly, pelvic floor exercises, but actually a lot of people don't really know what those muscles are. So the pelvic floor muscles are really the muscles that sit right on the gusset of your pants. So they go from the pubic bone right at the front.
Oh, can I do a little Blue Peter demo? Oh, don't worry, I'm not of my own pelvic floor. Go on. Yeah.
So they sit right in the gusset of your pants, just there. And they go from the pubic bone right at the front.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Right at the front.
Right at the front. Yeah.
Right at the front. And they stretch to your tailbone right at the back. Now there's a huge number of fibres and different muscles in that group, but they all work together. They start off at the tailbone, right around to the front, and then go back to the tailbone again. The pelvic floor is often considered to be a little bit like a sling, but actually it's much more dynamic than that. And it's really shaped to be more like a dome in real life. And your pelvic floor has to do an awful lot of stuff. So it's the muscle that keeps all your organs in place inside you. It works to keep your urine in place when you want it to be, but to allow it to come out when you want it to, and the same with your poo. It's important in your sex life, and it even manages to get big enough most of the time to get a baby out. So you can see that if it's doing that many things, sometimes something's going to go wrong with it. So what can go wrong? We use a term called pelvic floor dysfunction, and that covers a whole host of different symptoms and different problems with your pelvic floor. The main problem comes from having children, which is why it's so relevant to be here on this group discussing it. Your pelvic floor can become stretched and it can become weakened. The muscles themselves can become weak, but muscles attached to bone by structures called ligaments or fascia, and those you can't exercise, you can't move. They are just like little bits of connections that keep everything together, and sometimes they can become stretched or damaged as well. Most of the time it's the hormone changes in pregnancy, the weight of having a baby, and the effort involved in getting the baby out that causes the problems. You're at greater risk of having problems with your pelvic floor if you have a large number of children, and we think 5 is really the tipping point for that.
But only 5?
Only 5.
Oh,
I thought it too. Bigger babies are going to cause more problems as well, and we think that a weight of 9 pounds or 4 kilos is likely to be a problem. If you have
I get 2 gold stars.
If you have to push for a long time, or if you have to have help getting the baby out, so a baby that comes out with its hand over its head, for example, called a compound presentation, or a baby that needs to come out using forceps or ventouse.
We're talking babies, and Lime's now decided he wants to join in. So carry on, Lyra. I'm just going to get Lime. One sec.
And if you then have some sort of trauma, such an episiotomy, which is where they cut the vagina a little to help the baby to get out, or a tear, they are obviously going to cause some issues with the pelvic floor. But apart from having children, you can also have pelvic floor problems if you smoke, if you have a chronic cough, if you're overweight,
Oh, sorry chaps, we lost you for a second there. Sorry.
and if you have constipation and you strain a lot, that can be incredibly traumatic for your pelvic floor. So what conditions can you have if something goes wrong with your pelvic floor? The main one is incontinence, and that's the one we're going to talk about tonight. And there are 2 types of incontinence that we deal with the pelvic floor. The first is called stress incontinence, and we'll talk about that more in detail in a moment. You can also have problems with urge incontinence. You can have problems controlling your stools, your poo, and have fecal incontinence. You can have problems with pain. You can have problems where your organs start to drop down inside the pelvis, called a prolapse, and in the worst case scenario, they can come right outside your body. So your vagina comes inside out and your organs behind it. You can also have problems if your pelvic floor...
Horrible. I was just listening and I was like, oh yeah, that's thinking, oh my god, that sounds horrible. Oh.
If you end up with a painful pelvic floor, you can start to get the opposite sort of problems where you can't wee, you can't poo, and you have painful sex, or you have pain sitting, walking, all kinds of activities. So there are many, many symptoms that can be related to problems with your pelvic floor. So the one we're going to talk about tonight is stress incontinence. And the numbers of people having stress incontinence are really staggering. Most of the research shows that it's 1 in 3 women experiencing this at some point in their life, which is shocking. It's huge numbers, greater than diabetes. And yet we talk about diabetes and other health conditions so much, but we don't talk about incontinence. Recent survey on Mumsnet, are we allowed to mention Mumsnet?
Oh.
Dodgy. Showed that about 2,000 women showed that 2/3 of them had stress incontinence.
So Myra, sorry, stress incontinence, that's like if you cough and wee or jump and wee or if something like that, isn't it?
It's applying any stress on your pelvic floor. Not the sort of stress that comes from work or having too many children, but stress, physical stress on your pelvic floor. Coughing, sneezing, laughing, jumping, running, aerobics, trampoline, and causes you to leak urine. You'll see lots of adverts for things like light bladder weakness, I think they call it. Absolute rubbish. There is no such thing as light bladder weakness. It usually is stress incontinence. So stress incontinence will happen 1 in 3 women at least at some point in their life, and most people just get on with it, wear pads, stop exercising, and this can have a really negative effect on your self-image, and if you stop exercising, it's going to have an impact on your health as well.
So I'm just thinking, sorry Myra, I'm just thinking 1 in 3, if you imagine when you do the school one, if you walk into the playground, all those women, if you're thinking, like for me, because I mean my story is I met Myra because I was referred to Myra because I was having problems after having 4 babies, and things like I wasn't getting to the loo in time, or I was like, I wouldn't say running because I try to avoid running at all costs, but things like, you know, going up down the stairs, things like that were causing me to leak. So I was referred to Myra, and I remember thinking, God, I must be like some really extreme case, there must be something really wrong with me. But then if you think about in the playground at school, 1 in 3 women, that's loads of us, and yet nobody ever talks about it, ever. Like, I've had one conversation in the playground with another mum who is on here tonight. Hello, I won't name you. And we were both saying, God, do you have this thing? And she was like, yeah, I have this thing as well. So we should talk about it more, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We should absolutely talk about it. And groups such as Mummy's Gin Fund are a fantastic forum to start those conversations. And it will be fantastic if everybody who's listening tonight goes away and tells one other woman what they've heard, because that will spread the word further and further.
Because it's common, not normal. That's
Absolutely.
the message, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's common, not normal. Not
Yeah.
normal at all. And what's
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. Might find it hard to remember where I was, but that's
Sorry,
fine.
sorry. I can't help myself. Honestly, I get really excited. Right, sorry, carry on.
So, stress incontinence is characterised by small leaks of urine. The bladder itself can hold around about 400 to 500 mils of liquid. So if you think a can of Coke, you know what the size of a can of Coke looks like? That's about 350 mils. And you should be able to hold more than that in your bladder at any one time. When you do leak, with stress incontinence, it's only a very small amount most of the time. So it's rarely enough to run away down your legs and form a puddle on the floor. That's a different type of incontinence. It's caused because the bladder, which is quite sort of big and round and should be nice and relaxed even when it's quite full, should be sealed off shut at the very bottom. And that's done by a structure called your sphincter and also by your pelvic floor muscles. You don't really control your sphincter. That's all controlled in your brain by bits of your brain that you can't really manage. But your pelvic floor muscles you can control. If those muscles are weak or stretched, or if the surrounding ligaments and fascia are stretched, when you put pressure on your bladder by coughing, sneezing, running, it won't lift up and hold it nice and securely. Instead, it will just sink down. Think of it like a hose pipe. If you've got a hose pipe full of water in the garden, you don't need to use it tonight, and you stand on it, you should be able to stop the water running through it. If it's on a nice hard surface, hard ground, concrete, something like that. That's how your bladder neck should work. Now imagine putting the same hose pipe on a thick, soggy mattress. You can jump up and down on it all you like, but the support will be lacking underneath, and so you won't be able to stop the water going through it. And that's what happens if you don't have enough support around your bladder neck. So as you cough, your bladder neck sinks down and some of that urine will come out. So what can you do about it? Well, as it happens a lot. The NICE guidelines, which if you're not familiar with NICE, they're the body that gathers all the evidence on common conditions and works out what is the most effective way of treating it. NICE guidelines suggest that 3 months of supervised physiotherapy is the best treatment for stress incontinence. And the reason they say supervised is that it's recognised that however hard you try, however many exercises you do, sometimes you need to see a specialist to work out what you're not doing right. These pelvic floor exercises can be really quite tricky to get the hang of. More of that in a moment. Physiotherapy can cure stress incontinence in around 80% of cases. And for the other 20%, there are other treatments available. So what physiotherapy will offer is a number of things. First of all, even if we exclude the pelvic floor for a moment, it's really important to look after your general health. If you're constipated, you need to deal with that. If you're smoking, you need to stop. If you suffer from a chronic cough, you need to try and find ways of managing that. Keeping yourself healthy, good diet, good sleep, exercise, all help to manage all of these conditions. Then when it comes to the pelvic floor itself, without doubt, the key is pelvic floor muscle exercises. Now these have got a fantastic body of evidence behind them. We know they work. They've been proved again and again in randomised controlled trials, which is the gold standard for research in healthcare, to be effective. If you try and work your pelvic floor, you might think you have no idea what you're doing. In fact, we could try it now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Do you know, the first time I came to see Myra, I was like, you know, I've had 4 babies. I've had numerous midwives telling me all about how to do my pelvic floor, and health visitors and doctors at my 6-week check say, now, are you doing your pelvic floor exercises? And me going, oh yes, of course I am. But the reality was I actually had no idea what I was doing. And I probably do, yes, look, and sort of, that my neck would be bulging, and like my thighs would be burning, and I was like, and I'd do it like 3 times, and that was pretty much it. And then I decided I was going to set myself this routine on the train from Lewisham to New Cross every morning. That was my pelvic floor time. So when we pulled out of Lewisham, I would start my squeezes, and then when we got into New Cross, I would stop. And I never once got past the signals just outside Lewisham station. I do it about 3 times, go, can't do that anymore. So, but Myra taught me how to do it properly. So please tell us, how do you do it properly?
Okay, so if you're sitting at home and sit on the chair like this,
Right,
is a good
come on, I'm
position.
going to do it as well. Come on,
Or
Vicky,
you
join
can
in.
try lying down. If you're lying down, I suggest putting a pillow or cushion under your knees so they're not completely straight. Now, we won't be able to see what you're doing, and you won't be able to see what I'm doing because I know what to do.
That's a whole other Facebook Live. That is not a Facebook Live we're doing today.
But you might see what these two are doing. Your pelvic floor is tucked inside you, so you can't see what you're doing from the outside. The only muscle that should work along with your pelvic floor is a little bit of your tummy muscle. You've got 3 big stomach muscles. One that goes from top to bottom, called your rectus. One that goes diagonally across, actually 2, one on each side, called your obliques. And one that wraps its way around, called your transversus. And that's the one that works just a little bit along with your pelvic floor. So you should feel your belly button just coming in just a tiny amount. Now, that's all that should work.
I'm doing it now, can you tell?
Look
Sorry,
at
a
me,
question.
not at her.
Don't look at me, for God's sake. Question from Sophie, can you do them standing up?
Yes, you can do them standing up. And because you need to use your pelvic floors in all positions, it's a good position to exercise them in. But it's the most difficult position. So if you're new to doing it and you're not absolutely confident, I suggest lying down or sitting to start off with. So when you're doing your pelvic floor, technique is really critical. If you think, imagine somebody lying down, you've got a vagina, you've got your bowels underneath it, and you've got, you've got a baby's head in the way. You've got your bladder and your urethra, which is the tube from your bladder to the outside above it. When you're squeezing your pelvic floor, if you just squeeze right around the vagina and in a sort of straight line, if you like, along your vagina, you're not going to affect the neck of the bladder. So when you're squeezing your pelvic floor muscles in and up towards your stomach. And that way you lift the neck of the bladder up with it. And that's what's so important for closing off the neck of the bladder and stopping that urine coming out.
Somebody said to me once, can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. Somebody said to me once, imagine somebody's put a £10 note in your vagina and you need to hold it up there. That's basically what you have to do. Was that you that said that?
No.
I didn't think so.
Not the NHS, you
No.
have £2.
Somebody said, imagine someone puts a £10 note inside, you have to hold it in, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it, isn't it, though,
It's
basically?
an up and in squeeze. And that's one of the biggest problems that I see in women when I examine them, is they're not getting the lift up, which is why an internal examination by a specialist can be so important in turning the corner in how you exercise by picking those things up.
Sorry, Natalia's just said, I wonder how many of us are doing that exercise right now. So if you are currently squeezing your pelvic floor, please click like, and I want to see how many of you are squeezing right now. Right now.
So what you should feel is that movement you get when you are desperate for a wee. So wherever you're standing, lying, sitting.
Look at all the lights.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
There's a power surge across the UK at the moment with all these likers.
Imagine you're absolutely desperate to have a wee. Or imagine the Queen is stood in front of you and you're about to pass wind and you are trying to stop. So you should feel your muscles below pulling up and in. And you should be able to do it without holding your breath, without squeezing your eyes. So I'm pulling mine in now, and I
Shut
can
up
do
when
it.
you're talking. Honestly, this woman is like Superwoman.
It's
This is
what I
me.
do all day. And I can talk, I can breathe, I can be distracted by Helen, and I can still do my pelvic floor exercises. Now, the research has shown if you exercise 6 times a day for 1 week, you should just about start to feel what you're doing. So don't be alarmed if you can't feel it right now or tomorrow or the next day. Keep going and give it a week and you should start to feel a little bit of confidence in getting that contraction.
Sorry, Laura's just saying this is hard.
It
It's
is
supposed
hard.
to be hard work.
Not when you know what you're doing, but anything's hard if you don't know what you're doing. If I asked you to stand up and juggle 5 satsumas, stand on your head, do one of the difficult yoga poses, you wouldn't be able to do it. We're not trained to use our pelvic floor. It's inside us. We're very British. Some of you may not be British watching this, but for British people, you don't talk about your bladder. You don't talk about your bowels. We have friends in Vienna, in Austria, and I noticed when I was staying with them that their toilets are designed differently. So our toilets have a fairly big bowl, and Austrian toilets have a sort of flat area to them. And they're designed so that you look at your poo. You have a poo, and you look at it, and you see what you've done, so you know whether it's normal or not before you flush the drain.
Wow.
So we're a long way from
It's a bit
that
like being a
sort of
mom.
thing.
I get presented with various poo samples on a daily basis, so it would be like that, but for everyone.
Yeah.
And also on the subject of other countries, France. Let's talk about how fantastic France are when it comes to postnatal pelvic care. Is that the right word? Yeah. Women in France, they get this all the time, don't they?
They do. They have a minimum of 6 sessions with a specialist physiotherapist after every birth to get their pelvic floors back. And we should have that here. We do have a fantastic system called the Mummy MOT, and this has been established by a physiotherapist called Maria Elliott, who works in Harley Street, which does mean that the pound signs sort of follow it to some extent. But she has a program where you have an hour assessment where she checks all of your pelvic floor, back, posture, tummy gap, breathing, and so on. And that's starting to spread around the country, mostly with private practitioners. But we are, as a group of pelvic floor physiotherapists, we are pushing to get more access for women. And one of the biggest ways to help, although I hope my manager's not watching, is that women demanding this access, going to your GP and saying, I want to see a pelvic floor physiotherapist.
And you know what, actually that is what I did. I went to my GP, I'd heard about women's health physio, I had no idea what it was, I didn't know what it was for, but I went to my GP, and I have to say, for somebody like me, who's fairly bolshy and tends to overshare, it was really embarrassing actually. And I went to my GP, and a male GP, and I turned up, not that that should make a difference, but it felt slightly more embarrassing. And I went to see him, and I just said, I've got a baby who was, I don't know, 3 months old or something, and I want to be referred to Women's Health. And I just asked straight out, I want you to refer me to Women's Health physio. I'm having problems, I'm leaking, I don't have good pelvic floor strength, I want to sort it out now, and I don't want to be like this in 10 years' time. And I think so many of us go, oh, it's just normal, everybody has it, and we make jokes about it, and we say, we see kids on trampolines and we say, oh, I can't go on the trampoline because I'll wet myself. Actually, you don't have to wet yourself. You don't have to. And actually my GP was amazing. I said to my GP, I want to be referred to Women's Health, and he said, absolutely fine, no problem, filled out the form and sent it off. And I saw you within, it was about 6 weeks or 8 weeks, something like that. Although, if all of Gin Fund now get referred to you, there'll be like a 10-year wait. Whilst I'm interrupting you, I've got some questions for you. Brilliant question from Sarah. Sarah wants to know, my husband wants to know if he can do them too. What about the boys? What do the boys do?
Men can do pelvic floor exercises also. Now, one of the things I'm going to go on to talk about is squeezy out. And there is a squeezy for men. The biggest difference is that all women should do pelvic floor exercises preventatively, as you would clean your teeth or go to the optician, 3 times a day. If you have symptoms, you should do them 6 times a day. And this has been proven in research to be the most effective. If you're exercising 6 times a day, you should get your pelvic floor back in around 6 to 9 months. If you're exercising twice a day, it's going to take longer. The biggest difference for men is that you should not exercise preventatively. Unless you have a problem, you don't need to exercise your pelvic floor. And if you do, it can cause pain problems. But if you have a problem of any sort, incontinence, prostate problems, etc., then they can be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Nikki says 6 physio, so the number 6 physio at Monument have a great women's health physio who does postnatal checks.
Yes, Camilla.
If you can't wait.
Yes, she's very good. There's some very good private physios. The NHS physios, of which I am one, are clearly fantastic also, but there can be a little bit of a wait. I've given Helen some details of how you can find a women's health physio through our specialist organisation, so she will be putting those up on the website as well. And if there is anybody out there who is so mortified that there's no way they could face going to a physio or a GP, there's even a Skype consultation set up. And again, I've given the details to Helen, where a physio called Jane Appleyard up in the north of England will Skype you and talk you through it and follow you up via Skype. Obviously, you can't have an internal examination that way, and she will refer you on or advise you to do so if she feels it's really necessary. But there are different ways to access specialist services.
Can I ask you, Myra, just following on from what you're saying, can you describe, or maybe I could describe, what happens when somebody comes for an appointment? Because I was in the middle of baby and children, and I hadn't really put any thought into what was actually going to happen. So I just turned up, and I was really shocked that there was an internal, because that hadn't occurred to me that there would be an internal examination, which is fine, and I could totally see why there would be, but I just didn't know that was going to happen. So maybe could you just explain what happens when someone comes to you?
So in my clinic, I have about 45 minutes with somebody the first time they come. The most important part is asking questions. So I want to know what the problem is. I will ask detailed questions about obstetric history and gynecological history, general health. I will ask very specific questions about your bladder and your bowels, your periods, etc., so that I get a full picture of what the symptoms are. And then the most important part, really, of going to see somebody rather than doing your exercise on your own is the internal examination. Now, this sounds a nightmare, but for most people who have stress incontinence, they will have gone through some sort of trauma to the pelvic floor, often childbirth. So having internal isn't that out of the normal for you. Also, by the time you sat and talked to somebody for 15-20 minutes about your bladder and your bowels, actually you're so relieved to get it out there and to get somebody listening to you and saying, okay, we can do something about this. I very rarely have anybody who says, no, I don't want it being done to me. The examination itself shouldn't be painful at all. It's clearly a bit undignified. Examinations like this always are. But you lie down on the bed, knees in sort of up in the normal position, feet apart a wee bit, and I look at the pelvic floor. I get you to do some tests such as coughing and bearing down. I palpate around the outside. Palpate means I just will have a feel, basically have a prod. And then we use one finger. And physiotherapists rarely use a speculum, which is that sort of metal gadget that you get when you have a smear test, because we don't need to use a speculum for what we're doing. So it's one finger, and we're looking for about 20.
Just wait to let people reconnect. Sorry, chaps, we lost you for a second then.
We're looking
we just caught Vicky having a cup of tea. I've done 3 vodkas since we went there. Right, anyway, sorry, carry on.
We're looking for about 20 to 30 different things. It's actually quite detailed, but it only takes a couple of minutes. And once we've done that, we can then give you a personalised plan. We can tell you exactly what you need to do to get back on track again. Which leads me back to the actual detail of the exercises.
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, honestly, it doesn't hurt. It really doesn't. It's nowhere near as bad as a smear test. And like Myra said, once you've had a baby, if you're anything like me, half of Lewisham has had a good old prod around. So actually, I promise you, don't not go because you're worried about having an internal or because you're worried about what's going to happen to you. I absolutely promise you, it really isn't that bad.
Yeah, it isn't. And it's so worth it to get dry again. And if I see ladies who are anxious about the internal, then I will often say, let's not do it today. Come back next time, we'll do it then. And then they've met me once. It's not quite so intimidating. Not that I think I'm intimidating anyway.
But like, I've got a prolapse. What have I got? A something prolapse. I can't remember. I've got some prolapse something or other. But there's no way. How would I ever have known that without allowing Myra to examine me? So, like, that examination actually tells you things that you don't, because I can't feel it from the outside, but you can tell me that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's really important.
Sorry chaps, my video has frozen on my screen. If you can still, I think you're still there. Can someone just click like or say hello so that I can just check that you're still there? Because I've frozen. Are you there? Oh good, right, you're still there. Okay. Thank you. Carry on.
Now, going back to the exercises, if you Google pelvic floor exercises, you can come up with a whole load of rubbish. And you read things like, do 200 contractions every time you're at a red traffic lights, or exercise every time you're doing the washing up. And actually, this just isn't helpful. So exercises need to be done carefully, and you need to concentrate on them until you are confident that you know what you are doing. It's the same as any other skill. If you were going to learn to juggle, you would need to think about it really hard. You'd need to practice. You'd need to have no other distractions. Once you've got it, you can stand there and juggle your 3-4 balls or satsumas, no problem at all. So, when you're starting with the pelvic floor, you have to give it your full focus. There are also 3 different types of exercises that you can do for it. So, get yourself back in your pelvic floor position. The first one is a really strong contraction. You need to give that pelvic floor some welly. So you lift it up and in as hard as you possibly can. And you keep holding it.
So that's your £10 note is falling out.
That's it. And you should be able to hold it for 10 seconds. Now let's count 10 seconds because it's
okay,
not
I'm going to do it.
quick. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3,
I'm
4,
losing it.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and let go.
Now own up, how many people can do that? Because I cannot.
You should be able to do 10 of those with only a 4-second gap in between each one. Now, when we're examining, we stop the examination if you lose 50% of your power during one of those contractions. They're called your slow ones. You should then, after a sort of minute or two's rest, be able to do some fast ones. And these are different. 70% of your pelvic floor is made up of what we call your slow fibres. They're the muscles that squeeze really, really hard and can hang in there for quite a while. And the other 30% is what we call your fast fibres, and they're the ones that should be able to snap into action really fast, such as when you jump on the trampoline. So now try doing a squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go. And you should be able to carry on for 10.
I'm quite good at them.
Yeah.
I find them a lot easier.
A lot of people find those easier. And the reason you do the 2 different types is that they have to do different things. It's like having your slow ones as being your arms and your fast ones as being your legs. In real life, you wouldn't use your arms normally to take the place of your legs. You would if you're a baby. And vice versa. So your slow ones, you need to hold everything in when you're lifting, for example, or carrying something for a while. Your fast ones need to come in when you cough. You can also do something called a submaximal exercise, which is half a squeeze. And that's a little bit more complicated, so I won't go into that anymore now. You need to be able you need to be able to squeeze just before you cough. And for some people, this can make all the difference between continence and incontinence. And it's called the knack. If you know you're going to cough, sneeze, lift, pull in those muscles quickly before you do so. It will brace the pelvic floor, lift everything up, and might stop you from leaking.
Question. Laura says, asking about breathing during the exercises, she says, do you need to be breathing normally while doing the exercises? Because I'm automatically holding my breath.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yes, you do. The reason is that in normal life, when you're shopping, working, lifting, talking, running, doing yoga, you want your muscles to work. And you need to be able to breathe normally doing all of those activities. Also, your diaphragm, which is the muscle at the bottom of your lungs, is shaped like a dome. When you breathe in and hold your breath, that dome sinks back down and becomes very flat. That then presses down on all your organs and presses on the pelvic floor. So if you're holding your breath, you're actually pushing your pelvic floor down. But it again is a technique that's really hard to get the hang of. Keep practicing for a week and you should start to get to grips with it.
I have to say I've got much better because come back, everybody. Hello, you're back. I think it's the rains interrupting my broadband. When I first started with Myra, Myra would say, right, hold your phone. She'd be like, hold, and I would honestly be like that. Like Skeletor. Like my neck would be like this. Like that. But I've got better, haven't
Much
I?
better.
Thank
Much
you.
better.
See,
Absolutely.
teacher says I got better.
Now, the other big challenge of remembering pelvic floor exercises. We often tell people when they've had a baby, we tell them two things. One, think about contraception. Two,
Yes.
think about your pelvic floor. Sod off is what most women think. I am never having sex again, and I have no interest in my pelvic floor whatsoever. It's the wrong time to tell people. We need to be getting to women earlier.
I'm basically dead from the waist down.
So, important to get good quality information and important to remember how to do them, which is where I would recommend that you download Squeezy app. Now, it has to be said, I invented Squeezy, and so I am clearly biased. I don't get any money from Squeezy at all because I'm not allowed to recommend it in my NHS practice if I earn money from it. But it's been good for me in other ways.
Can I just say, I did not invent Squeezy, and it's my all-time favourite app. So I just want to drop that in there. It's so good.
Now, it does cost $2.99.
I'm going to show it. Keep talking, I'm going to show
And
it.
that's because the company who made it for me were not funded. We had no money for Squeezy, which is why we have to charge for it. But it is NHS approved, it is evidence-based and peer-reviewed. It's sold 50,000 around the world, and it's been a runner-up in 6 national awards. So it's not just me who says it's good, it is good.
I'll put links in the thingy. If I was more technologically minded, I would know how to show this to you, but I'm afraid I don't. The light's bouncing off it.
Now, what Squeezy will do is give you all the information on what to do and how to do it. You can have a standard program, which is 10 slow squeezes of 10 seconds and 10 fast squeezes. And you can have an advanced program if you open up professional mode, and you can put in your own numbers, or a physiotherapist can tell you what numbers to put in. You then have a squeezy ball that you can watch. So when you're doing that squeezing, you can concentrate on the squeeze and not do the counting. It's also well known that patients will count much faster as they go on. So your first squeeze may be 1.
Sorry, was this a
2.
study of me?
Not just you. But by the
I
time...
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right. So it will keep you at the right timing.
It's honestly, I cannot tell you how genius it is. And actually, we've got a couple of comments. Sorry, I know I keep interrupting you.
That's fine.
A comment from Sarah who says, Squeezy app is saving my life. Another saying, the app is a great reminder. Another one saying something else about how fabulous you are, that I can't find all of a sudden.
I like those ones.
But yes, I paid my $2.99, and because Myra kept saying to me, get the app, and I was like, yeah, of course I will. And it was number like 5,327,000 on my list of things to do. And then I got it, and oh my god, the difference! Like honestly, I wish I was on commission. I'm not. Honestly, this app is so genius because, and I wish I could show you, but basically what happens is there's this little button and it says squeeze now, and you click on squeeze now, and then you press play, and it's got like this orange, it looks like a plectrum, and it basically shrinks up and then it opens up again like that. So it's telling you like sock, 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 and then hold, 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 and then it's relax. And I find it so much easier to follow that than being like 1, 2, because by the time I get to 3, I'm thinking, what should we have for tea? And then I'm thinking, oh God, were they supposed to take the PE kits today? And then I'm thinking, oh God, what time am I supposed to collect them? By the time I've got to 5, all my muscles have gone because I'm thinking about something else. But this is so brilliant because it's literally just sock, hold, let go. Sock, hold, let go. Honestly, it's properly genius. I'm going to give you the Mommy's Gym Fund Genius App Award. First recipient.
Excellent. Now, the other good thing about the app is that if you do your own program and you set your own numbers, it won't let you do too many. And this is something else that's really important about your pelvic floor exercises. If you Google long enough, you will come across people who say that they're not good for you and that they cause you more problems. And there is some truth in that. It's the same with any other muscle. If you suddenly started running hours and hours every day, your leg muscles would hurt and they'd be tight and they'd get cramped. And the same with your pelvic floor. If you overuse your pelvic floor muscles and you don't relax them, then they can cause you problems. Some women exercise so frenetically because they're so anxious about leaking. Their muscles are completely knackered. And then what happens is you cough, your muscles are so knackered, they can't do anything to hold the bladder neck up, and you leak even more. So, really important to exercise enough, but not too much. And if you follow Squeezy, you can't go wrong. If $2.99 really is a challenge, and you go onto the Squeezy website, it has all the instructions. It doesn't have the program because that's an app-specific thing. You can't have the Squeezy ball, but it does give you all of the advice on what you should do, and you can access that for free.
And lovely Laura, again, hi Laura, said, it works on the Apple Watch.
Yes, it does. Yes. Doesn't
Ooh,
have
check
as
you
many
out, Laura,
features
with your Apple Watch.
because the Apple Watch is a bit of an
Very
awkward
posh.
thing to program, but it does work on that.
Now, Katie says, my lovely doctor has referred me to physio for my pelvic floor. Well done, doctor. The physio made a big point about getting me to relax and focus on release. As she said, pelvic fatigue can make the problem worse, which is exactly what you've just said.
Yes.
So I should have read that before I started saying it, because that's exactly what you just said.
And can I just say that's
yeah.
also one of the reasons, again, to have a personalised assessment, because we look at people's pelvic floor not just for weakness, but for whether they're a little bit overactive and tight, and whether down training or relaxation is more important to start with than strengthening. So you may well, if we get people talking more, you may well talk to your neighbour or your friend and they say, oh, but I was given this to do and that's different. And that's because everybody's pelvic floor is different.
Sarah was just asking about how long you exercise for. I think, Sarah, I think Myra's covered that. If you've got any more questions, come back. But I think, unless there's anything more you need to know, because you've talked about that, haven't you? Amanda says, Myra is giving excellent advice.
Oh, thank you.
Well done, Myra. You can find out more about specialist physiotherapy, NHS or private practice by looking on the website of the Pelvic Obstetric and Gynecological Physiotherapy Network.
That's
Sorry,
right,
Vicky.
well spotted, and that's on the list that you'll put onto the website as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I will put please share the app name again.
Squeezy.
So it's SQUEEZY.
And if you put in Squeezy in the search bar, Squeezy NHS in the search bar of the App Store, it will come up.
And the picture, it's a blue picture, and it's a white lady with her legs crossed. So you know, like the lady on the toilet door? It's a lady like that with her legs crossed.
There are 3 apps there, so just make sure you get the right one. It's very difficult to find the space on the App Store. They limit how many words you can put on. But there's Squeezy, which is the main one. Then there's Squeezy for men, and there's also Squeezy CF, because we know that people with cystic fibrosis, which is a chronic lung problem, have more incontinence than people without because of all the coughing they do. So we've developed an app that's tailored for them to support the physiotherapists who work with CF, and so make sure you get the right one. They're all the same essential exercise program, but the content is slightly different.
And beautiful Nikki, my lovely friend Nikki, hi Nikki, has just put a link up for the app, so that's
fantastic.
Great. If anybody wants to look at that. I'm just going to look quickly and see if there's any more questions. Liz is just about to. Liz said, "This is so interesting. Mr. Ocado is about to be made very uncomfortable because I'm not putting my phone down." So, hi Ocado. Hi.
Brilliant.
Liz, I sincerely hope they're bringing you fish fingers. That's all I'm saying. I just want to quickly check if there's any more questions. We've got a question from somebody with a fantastic name that I can't pronounce. Andrea, I think. Andrea, and then a fantastic name. Who wants to ask you about gadgets. Are we going to move on?
We are going to go on to gadgets.
That question, or
yes.
do you want to answer it now?
I'll do that in a minute.
Okay,
we'll
talk about gadgets in a minute. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now, the next thing is that exercises sitting down are one thing, but you need your pelvic floor to work in different ways. Imagine that you wanted to run the marathon and you started off by running down to your garden gate and back. If you did that every single day for 6 months, you'd be no nearer running a marathon. You have to train for the activity you want to achieve, and the same goes for the pelvic floor. So I won't go into too much detail on this because it won't be so relevant to everybody. But if you do your exercises and you find you're still leaking when you run or go on the trampoline, then you need to change how you exercise to adapt to that. For example, if jumping makes you leak, you can try squeezing and jumping as an exercise. Or you can try jumping with an increasingly full bladder to push your bladder. If you leak when you run, then you might need to try running just for the amount of time that you're leak free, let's say it's 3 minutes, and gradually increase it and try exercising when you reach that point where you feel you might leak. There's lots of clever tricks that we can teach you if that's necessary. And then what happens if the exercises aren't enough? We know that we can cure 80% of people with physiotherapy, but sometimes you get your pelvic floor absolutely perfect. Or it's really good to start with. I do see women who I examine and there's nothing there in their pelvic floor that I can improve. Why do they still leak? There are two main reasons. One is that around about 18% of people may have a problem called levator avulsion injury. And that means that your muscle, your levator ani, which is the biggest muscle in the pelvic floor, comes away just a little bit from the bone during childbirth. This can be really difficult to assess, but it does mean that your muscle doesn't work quite as well because it can't get the leverage by joining onto the bone as it used to. The other problem that may happen is that the non-muscular tissues, your fascia, your ligaments, can also be stretched, and you can't exercise those. Often, exercising your pelvic floor will compensate, but not always. Again, we can't assess that and tell you how much is down to that problem and how much is your muscles. So what we do is train up the muscles, and when they're 100%, we see what symptoms you're left with. What do we do about that? Well, there's a number of things. So this is where we talk about gadgets. I'm going to wriggle forward.
Oh, I'm loving it. I
to
can't
my
wait for the
gadget collection over here.
The person that's just sent me a private message, I've seen it, and I'll ask at the end of this session.
Okay, there's a million products on the market. Now, officially, I'm not supposed to say I recommend one over the other, but I'm not here in an official capacity, so I can say what I like.
I'm in charge, and I said you can say whatever you like.
Now, everything I'm about to show you, Helen has the details of, and will put up where you can get them from. These are support sportswear. Now, these I think are fantastic. They are designed by a woman in Ireland called Yvonne Brady, and she runs a company called EVB, and she is an engineer who who was so frustrated at leaking when she had her children. She's designed sportswear to support everything that you need to support when you run or exercise. It's good for people with tummy gap, pelvic girdle pain and stress incontinence. They have gussets and front and back that's like reinforced concrete, and you have to buy a size that you virtually have to peel on you, so they're really tight fitting. But they are fantastic, and the reports coming back from physiotherapists and from women using them are really good. They are quite expensive, they're about £40 for a pair, but I think they're very good if you are wanting to exercise and help keep yourself leak free. The next are a pair of pants, which you probably can't appreciate really what they're like, but feeling this bit here,
Oh, let's have a go.
they feel pretty normal.
Yeah.
You can just feel there's something subtle inside the gusset.
It's a bit like a shower cap.
Yeah, feels a bit like a shower cap inside, but cotton on the outside. These are called Diary Dolls pants, and they're invented by Carol Smiley and Annabelle Croft, and they are designed to contain small leaks. So the sort of leaks from stress incontinence or from the irregular bleeding that you get around the menopause.
Do you know what though? That is no thicker than a normal pair of pants,
No,
is
they're
it?
really
They just
clever.
feel like a normal pair of pants.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no pad or like, there's no padding in there or like sanitary towel or anything. That is just a pair of shower cap pants.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And they're around about £12 a pair, I think. But because they're washable, reusable, if you're somebody who leaks quite a bit, whilst you're undergoing treatment, because you're not going to put up with this leaking, remember, these can really help make you feel a bit more normal rather than having to wear pads. And if you're somebody who suffers from thrush or vaginal pain, wearing pads can be really bad for you. So these are a much better option. Okay, now this thing here is weighted. So this bit here is heavy and this bit here is dangly. This is a cone, and you can get different types of vaginal cones. This one is a nice soft silicone, and it comes as part of a set of 3 with different weights.
Is it wrong to say it looks a little bit like a sperm?
That's a large sperm. No wonder you've got 4 children. Okay, so what you do with the cone is this is used for weight training your pelvic floor. It won't work for everybody, because if you've already got a strong muscle but you can't hold it for long, then this won't necessarily be the right answer for you. But if you've got a weak muscle, this can help strengthen it. Imagine that's your vagina, here's the cone, you put the cone in the vagina. The wiggly bit here can be quite clever, because if you are lifting and squeezing with your contraction, you should see the wiggly bit go up. If you're not squeezing properly, the wiggly bit won't move. So they can be very useful. This one here is called an Inco-Stress, and this was developed by a physiotherapist in Belgium. It again is silicone, slightly squeezy. You can put it in to the vagina, and the ridged bits on it stimulate the muscles, make you feel it a bit more, so you can squeeze around it. It can help you to work a bit harder. And it can also be used as a pessary, and I shall explain what a pessary is. A pessary is something that goes in the vagina to give you support, a bit like wearing an underwired bra. Now, you remember I mentioned that your bladder neck sinks down, and that's partly why you're leaking, because you haven't got the support around the neck of the bladder to keep the urine in. Having something to lift that neck back up again can stop you leaking. So a pessary like Inco-Stress, or like this one, which is my personal favourite, called Contiform, can make all the difference.
And I've got links to all of these, haven't
Yes,
I?
you have.
Yeah.
Now, Contiform was developed in Australia and is now available here on prescription, which means that you can get it from your GP. I'm upsetting quite a few GPs in my area now, because I'm sending lots of women to get Contiform, and I had to write and justify my behaviour to somebody recently. But anyway, upsetting people is what I do best. So this goes in.
And that's why she's in Gin Fund, ladies and gentlemen.
This goes in your vagina, like that. So this round bit is near the entrance. The top is here, the back passage is here. The thick bit takes all the pressure, transmits it around the thin bit, which sits under the neck of the bladder and holds it up. A bit like a seat belt. A It's like a seatbelt around your bladder neck. This is fantastic if you are dry most of the time and you can't get dry, say when you run for 5 miles, which often is a bit of a problem. You can use this when you run, stay dry, take it out at the end of your run, wash it, wear it next time. This is another type of pessary. It's in its package because they're quite expensive, so I don't really want to release it because then I can't use it. This is a ring, and we use ring pessaries for prolapse particularly. And this is called a ring with a knob, not a very romantic name, but the knob bit, again, sits under the neck of the bladder. You can put this in yourself, or some of them we put in women with prolapse and leave it in there for 6 months at a time, and the knob supports the neck of the bladder and stops you leaking. So women with prolapse and incontinence, we can use this for as well.
Just on that subject of prolapse, that leads me beautifully into the question that I've had messaged to me. So just a reminder, if you want to ask a question but you don't want to post it publicly, send a private message to the page and I will read it out. So this question says, hi, great session. Any info to share on prolapses postpartum? The pelvic floor physio sessions for 6 months haven't worked.
A prolapse is where your bladder, your womb or your bowel, or a combination of them, sink down a little bit. And a bit like your pelvic floor trauma, if your prolapse is due to pelvic floor weakness, then by improving your pelvic floor, you'll support the prolapse. And there is evidence now that physiotherapy and pelvic floor exercises can cure an early stage prolapse. However, your organs are also held up by ligaments and fascia that can hold it against the abdominal wall. If they're stretched, it's the same position as for stress incontinence. Your pelvic floor may help to, may compensate, that's the word, compensate for that enough that you don't have symptoms, but it may not. And again, we can't judge this at the beginning. So if your pelvic floor is now good, but you've still got the prolapse, it's a structural weakness and you need to change the structure in some way. So again, losing weight if you've got excess weight, avoiding heavy lifting where you can, avoiding constipation could all help. Core stability exercises, so ones that work your abdomen, your glutes, things like yoga can be fantastic for prolapse and pelvic floor. That can also help. Just like to also, just slightly off track here, things like prolapse are more common if you are hypermobile or quite stretchy. So if you're somebody who's a bit double jointed, you know, you stretch your elbow and it sort of bends the wrong way a bit, or if you get a lot of stretch marks, that's a sign that your collagen, your body's elastic, just gives a bit too easily. It's genetic, it's absolutely bad luck, there's nothing you can do about it, no cream, no exercise, nothing will change that. And you are more likely to prolapse, and that's nothing you've done wrong, it's just one of those unfortunate things. The main thing to do for prolapse, I suggest, are pessaries. Pessaries are really fabulous. A lot of women worry about them, but they sit there a bit like an underwire bra. You shove it up, there's no real elegance to the process, sits at the top of the vagina, holds everything up. When you take it out, things will come back down again. It takes a bit of trial and error to get a pessary that's the right one for you. And a lot of clinicians don't understand pessaries. Most physios don't fit pessaries. I do, but I'm quite unusual. So if you go to your GP, they'll quite often try 1 or 2 rings and they'll say, oh, they don't stay in, rings don't work for you. That's a bit like going to Marks and Spencer's shoe department, trying on a pair of size 5 boots when you're a size 8 and saying, oh, shoes won't work for me. So it takes on average 2 or 3 goes to get the right pessary, and there's at least 8 different shapes and endless sizes. 70 to 90% of women with prolapse should have their symptoms completely cured with a pessary if it's given enough opportunity. And they can then stay in 6 months, or you take them in and out every day or every week, depending on the type and how easy you find that to do. They can stay in whilst you're having sex. You shouldn't notice them, you shouldn't feel them at all. They can work really, really well. Obviously, there's also surgery for prolapse, and this isn't really the time to go into it, but surgery is big. You should never have it if you're going to have another child, because it will undo itself, and there's a 20 to 30% failure rate. So where possible, we try and avoid going down that path.
Another private question about these gadgets. Can you have sex whilst you've got one of those in, and do they work with the coil?
Yes, they work with the coil. That shouldn't be a problem, but do check with your GP or gynaecologist who puts the coil in, because they will need to check the positioning of it and such like. What was the question?
Can you have sex with a pessary?
You can have sex with most of the pessaries. So ring pessaries, yes you can. Contiform or inco-stress are too big. They have to come out. But anything that's quite big usually has to come out every night anyway, because otherwise it can irritate the inside of the vagina. These ones are much smaller and they don't tend to. Certain pessaries, like a Gellhorn, which comes with a big poddy thing, you can't keep injuring sex, but most of them are fine to have injuring sex.
Amanda's just saying, Diary Doll pants have just rebranded.
Oh.
And they're now called Pretty Clever Pants.
I have to change all my paperwork, thank you.
Pretty Clever Pants, lovely. Vicky, my love, are you okay? Do you need to swap?
No,
Do you need to
I'm
swap with me? You can hold the baby and I'll interpret if you like. Are you all right? Do you want to have a break?
So while they're swapping, the other gadget that I haven't got here is an electrical stimulator. And they're gadgets that come with a little probe that you put inside the vagina, and it gives you a buzz of electricity designed to make your muscles work. They can work incredibly well, particularly if you're very weak. We measure your muscle strength on a scale of 0 to 5. And if you are a 3 or less, then the research shows that the stimulators work brilliantly. If you're stronger than a 3, they're not so effective. But the problem with them is they're somewhat artificial. They make you work 200 contractions per minute. And so they're not good in the long term. I don't think you should ever rely on one. They're good to kickstart you or to get you over a plateau, but you still need to do your basic pelvic floor exercises. And stims units are quite expensive, 80 to 100 pounds. There is a company called Stress No More, which again Helen has the details of, that do the best stim gadgets, and you get excellent service from that company. So if you're interested, that's the company to look at.
I've just had sorry Vicky, before we swap, I've just had a message from somebody saying they disconnected. So can I just check, is everybody still there? If you're still there, can you click on something, say hello, send us a like. Anybody there? Oh, yeah, still there. Must just be this one person. I'm just going to read out this comment. I've been kicked out on my phone, so I'll just read out this comment. It's a long one, and then I'll start with Vicky. What do you think of those gadgets that are meant to strengthen your pelvic floor muscles? Many years ago, I bought a product, basically teardrop-shaped silicone weights that you're meant to wear whilst you're walking around the house. And then as the weeks go past, you eventually end up using the lightest weight. Do they work?
I think it's fair to say that everything works, but again, it's getting the right gadget for the right problem. So if you have a weak muscle, something that makes it work harder can strengthen it. But if your problem is that you can't hold on for long, then it's all about training your muscle to hold on for longer, that a weight won't necessarily work. So it just depends on your problem. There's no harm in trying these things if you're happy to spend the money on them. My advice would be always, if they're not working for you, to go and see a specialist physio, and ideally to see a physio in the first place, because then they can get you to use the right things. In my practice, I don't have equipment that I can lend out or give to patients other than the pessary rings. And I find I very rarely recommend equipment because I'm loath to get patients to spend money if I don't need to. And if they are doing what they're meant to be doing with their exercises, most of the time we get better without needing a gadget.
Brilliant. I'm just going to swap with Vicky before her arms or head drop off. Here we are. This is a good stop, isn't it?
It is. I will have to say, hello, sweet face.
Sorry, I'm just looking after my colleague, my interpreting colleague. A quick question. Are there any tablets or medicine or anything else that somebody can take that will solve the problem, or does it have to be exercise?
Yes, after physiotherapy, the second recommendation
Make sure I'm covered up.
in the NICE guidelines is surgery, and there's an operation called a tape TVT sling, which has been used for about 18 years and has been fabulous, but is currently under debate because there are more complications than were first thought. So the third line treatment is a tablet called Yontreve or duloxetine. This is actually an antidepressant, but in a dose that is used for incontinence, it has an effect on the nerves which supply the muscles and actually make them work harder. It can be very effective for moderate stress incontinence. It doesn't work very well if you're very mild or very bad. However, it's a very unpleasant tablet to take. You have to take it for 2 weeks, where you experience quite severe nausea most of the time. And after that, you usually get over it and it works fine. But as a result, we see very few patients who are put on it because the side effects are somewhat extreme. Another type of incontinence called urge incontinence does respond well to medication. So you may come across people who say, oh, my doctor gave me a tablet for my incontinence and it's fantastic, but it's usually because it's a different type of incontinence.
Marvellous. So now I have to think and interpret at the same time. This is a challenge for my brain in the evening. Right, so I think I'm just looking at the time. So I think I want to ask if there's any more questions before we start to wrap up. Is there anything more that you want to add, Myra, before we finish?
Let me just check my
I
crib
just had
sheet.
a quick look through the list.
So, another question a lot of patients ask me is, once I'm better, do I still need to exercise? And the answer is yes. You need to continue pelvic floor exercises 3 times a day ideally for the rest of your life, or you may find the weakness comes back. Shall I keep going?
Yeah,
Things?
carry on.
Okay. You may also find you leak more at the end of the day because as you get tired, your pelvic floor muscles will get more tired. And the same goes for your period when your estrogen levels drop, because your estrogen hormone is responsible for plumping up your pelvic floor muscles, giving them a bit more bounce. And once your estrogen drops during your period or at the menopause, then you might find your muscles weaken a little bit more. Again, that can be changed by doing your exercises. And that's it for my crib sheet. Yes.
Right, so I want to quickly ask you guys if there's any more questions. If you can quickly type them now. I'm going to have a quick look. Lots of people saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome.
Lots of people saying they've never seen this information before. They've had lots of babies and don't know anything about their pelvic floor at all, which is definitely true for me. I know for me personally, this is my 4th baby, as you can see in their sleep. 4th baby. Nobody has ever taught me this information. Not at school when we're doing biology. I don't remember being taught anything about the pelvic floor at all. Not through my pregnancies. The only thing that has been mentioned is talking about, oh, make sure you do your exercises, make sure you do your exercises. And that's it. And just the information that Myra has given me has been fantastic. So I'm so happy to be able to share that information with you guys. So I want to have a quick look at the comments to make sure we're not missing anything. Sarah has asked, can we watch this again later? Yes, the answer. So this video will be put on the Facebook page, which means you can watch this at your leisure later. Also, at the moment, in my free time, I'm creating a video page for the website, which means that you will be able to go back and watch all of the Mummy's Gym Fun videos that I've done so far, and all the future videos will be put on the website. So you'll be able to watch again in the future. You can share it with your friends. When this live finishes, this video that you're watching right now, you can share. So I would ask you all, please share with your friends, spread this information everywhere. Not because I want Mummy's Gym Fun to spread, but because I want this information to spread. So I just think it's so important. Again, more thank yous. A question. Physio. When we ask the GP to refer us to physio, what exactly do we ask for? What do we say?
You can ask to be referred to a women's health physio or a pelvic health physio, because that name is coming in more and more. There is definitely physiotherapy at Lewisham Hospital, also at the Princess Royal Hospital and Farnborough, or Beckenham Beacon, those sites there. There's physiotherapy at King's and at Guy's, but some of that is only accessible through the consultants. But Lewisham and Bromley you can definitely get to through your GP. And if they're not sure about women's health physiotherapy, they can just refer you to the normal physiotherapy department and the referrals will be dealt with. Certainly if a lot of people come forwards, which I hope they will, then you may have to wait a rather long wait. But bear with it. I think you're better to wait and be seen by a specialist physiotherapist than not be seen at all. And if our waiting lists go up, we are more likely to get more funding for more hours.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Natalia said in Blackheath at BMI they have a women's health physio. Just more people just saying excellent information, thank you very much. Midwives and health visitors are really stretched, so it's really important to get this information out. So lovely. So last chance for questions. Any more? I'm just going to quickly check if I've had any private direct questions. Oh, I did have one. Just remembered. Hold on. Sorry, just talk amongst yourselves. I've lost access to my messages. Come back.
The rectal one.
Yes.
So I think somebody asked whether the muscles will work if you've got some rectal wall weakness or rectal damage of some sort. Yes, they will. So the muscle is really one big muscle. It works around the back passage as well as around the vagina and the front passage. We think that sometimes it works better if you think about the back passage, so you really focus on lifting and squeezing around the anus, but it's really hard to tell whether it makes any difference. Otherwise, the exercises are the same. But there are some subtle changes in the back passage. If you've had a traumatic delivery of a 3rd and 4th degree tear, for example, you may have some damage to the anal sphincter, and again, that may not be compensated fully by your pelvic floor. So if you're in any doubt, get an assessment. We can also do anal rectal examination, which is pretty horrid. There's no doubt about it. But having any degree of anal incontinence is really awful. So it's worth putting up with that if it is recommended, because it's important when you contract the muscles and pull up the anus that you get a certain angle in the anus, and we can check that you're doing that, making sure you're keeping it where it needs to be. And there are some specific treatments that we can do for anal incontinence as well.
Okay, marvellous. Thank you. One more. Somebody sent me and I can't get to it. Can't open my private.
Could always send it to me privately and I can.
Sorry, somebody sent me a question and I can't. Found it. Did I ask you this already? I can't remember. Can you see a women's health physio person when you're pregnant?
Yes, you can. So particularly important if you are experiencing pelvic girdle pain that's really affecting your life, or if you have any incontinence during your pregnancy, get it seen to. In the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, we would not do an internal examination, but after that time it's perfectly safe to do an internal examination, and the sooner you start treatment, the better it will be. You can get your pelvic floors in shape before you have a baby, which will help.
Okay, marvellous. So I think that's it. So I want to say a humongous thank you to you, Myra, for joining us, for coming and for sharing all this information. It's been absolutely fascinating, really, really worthwhile. So I really, really want to say a big thank you to you. I want to say a massive thank you to Vicky for her interpreting. Thank you very much to you guys. So as Myra had said already, everything that she's been talking about for products, so the pants and the sperm and all of those things, she's given me the information. So when we finish the video, I'm going to create a blog for the website, and all that information, the links, the products, everything will go in this blog. And that one, again, I would say please share that information. If somebody has more questions, how do they, do they go to their GP, or what do they do with those questions that are going to come up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I mean, I'm happy to answer questions via the website or however that works.
Okay, so if I post, when I put the blog on the website, if you guys want to ask questions, then if you post your questions on that blog, you're happy to reply?
Yes, that's fine.
Marvellous. Or they can just contact their own GP
yes,
for physio referral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Lovely. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to these two beautiful ladies. And I will see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.